What is going on? Hope everybody had a good week. I had a pretty good week. I'm going to change up the comments a little bit on this episode. Like last week, there were some complaints that I was doing arguments too much, and I actually agree because that kind of burns me out. Like sometimes I'm sitting here and somebody will go, hey man, did you hear about what this person did or that person did? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. I didn't watch the episode. I can't intelligently comment on it. So I'm going to try to avoid that this week because I mean, it's not fun for the people outside of it. Like, I like some level of gossip, but I can't be doing purity tests on everybody, because that would just take up too much time, and I'd be sitting around all week just watching podcasts to comment on them, and it's like, I don't really want to do that. So, we'll catch on that. Oh, dude. Yeah, no, I got to get to that, because I'm gonna talk about Cracker Barrel, and I'm going to tie it to Disney too, because it's something I've wanted to talk about for a while. Is, yeah, you know what? I'll just go with it right now. I'll get to the M2 money supply thing because it's infuriating, right? So one of the things that happens out there over time, and it happens in all empires, right? Like, it's my viewpoint that what we're witnessing now and what we're living through is, as Ray Dalio would call it, the 80-year debt cycle. Debt is too high. I mean, you know, you had Dick Cheney in office 20 years ago. Deficits don't matter. Well, deficits don't matter till they do. Like, I could just look throughout history, right, and tell you that deficits matter. I mean, if you look at our GDP, if you look at government spending, the government has taken over like 48% of the economy at this point. And what does that do? Well, it creates a smaller private sector. You can't grow as fast. Therefore, you have to cannibalize more of the economy. Then you can't grow as fast. So you have to cannibalize even more of the economy. But one of the things that happens in empires is elite overproduction. Now, however old you guys are out there, I don't know, you might not remember this, but you might be old enough to remember it. I'm 47, so right at the tail end of Gen X. When I was in high school, let me make this point before I get to it. When you have elite overproduction, not everybody can be an elite, but elites have a contempt for labor. They just do. You know, this is why you have the problem that you have today with people going to college and they can't come out and they end up working at Chipotle. There was recently a woman who went to school for computer programming or computer science, one of those things. I don't know, a finance guy, whatever. I don't know anything about that. Functional on the computer. but she could only get a job interview at Chipotle. Now, there's nothing wrong with whatever you do. Are you earning money and not asking people for money? Nothing wrong with it. Whatever pays the bills. That should be what is taught to people. Instead, in the early 90s, when I was long-haired, used to have hair back then, jamming out to Nirvana and Metallica and all that, I'm in school. And this is the message that was just driven into me as a Gen Xer. It was, you got to go to college or you'll be working at McDonald's. Well, my question is, and it was even a question I had at the time, what's wrong with working at McDonald's? Right? I'm sure a store manager working at McDonald's makes a really good living. I mean, I worked at McDonald's before I ended up in the military. I just wanted something part-time. I was hanging out, having a good time, and I got offered a management position. You know, start out low-level manager, shift manager. And I told them, you know, I appreciate that, but I'm joining the military. And even some of that liberal contempt of labor had sunk into me. But this was like 2002 when I was doing this. And the actual store manager there told me he was making 80 grand in 2002. Now, I don't know what skill set he had, whether he went to college or not. I still think having a skill set, no matter what you do, is your best course of action. Like if you, I don't know, when you're young, working in the construction industry, and you become a carpenter, and then use that money as a carpenter to, I don't know, go to college to become an engineer, okay? And this is also a problem with college degrees. I think, and I view it as, having as many skills in the back pocket in life is going to serve you better than anything. A lot of the degrees that we have today are not skills, okay? My degree, finance, I could get some finance bros pissed at me, but if I'm talking to an 18-year-old kid and he says finance, he asks the question, finance or accounting? It's accounting, hands down, all day. If it's economics or accounting, it's accounting. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, if you want to do business administration, great. Double major in business administration and accounting. If you're going into the business world, in my opinion, the only degree you should be considering is accounting. That's the only business degree. Now, maybe my finance program lacked some of the training. I found it inadequate, to be honest with you. And that was the University of South Florida. That's where I went. Didn't really answer any questions. I learned 90% of what I know about finance on my own, okay? But you get into this era of elite overproduction. Everybody has to go to college. Well, you need builders, people with actual blue-collar skills. You need plumbers, electricians. Okay, but no. Everybody's got to go to college and be a pseudo-intellectual, as I call them. Most of your college professors are dumb as a box of bricks. Most of them are fucking useless. I have no problem saying that. Most of them, when I was in college, it was very rare that I had a professor or spoke to a professor that I sat there and went, that dude's sharp. Okay? A lot of times when I'm talking to a blue-collar dude, I don't get... I'm like, yeah, this guy's sharp, man. He just became a plumber. That's honestly how I view it. You know, I think the elite plan And this happens to empires, again, over and over again. Look at Spain. Spain became so wealthy in the 1500s from all the gold they were bringing back from the New World. Nobody worked. Everybody just fingered their asshole on OnlyFans. And, you know, Spain today is just like every other European country. Its government has devoured its economy. And it's like, well, why did our economy forget how to grow? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because the public sector ate your entire economy. Now people have less money. Okay, that's just how that works. Every dollar that the government spends is taxed out of the economy and then put back into the economy, and it creates economic distortions. And you can only distort the economy so much before shit starts to break. So you get into this era of elite overproduction. Elite overproduction involves midwits. That's who it involves. Midwits. And these midwits, they come along and they don't understand how the real world works because they've been coddled the entire time. They got their degree. They assume they're smart. Then they can stop learning, right? And we get to this era of, why would somebody make that decision? It's like the head of marketing for Bud Light, Alyssa Heinerschott, okay? Complete elite. Liberal white woman, never had a shitty job in her entire life. I can almost guarantee you. She probably grew up in some upper middle class family, went to school, has a ton of student debt, comes into Bud Light and goes, we want to make this more inclusive and less fratty. So you insulted your core base. You know, and I go back to it. All of these people that are in these companies, what they're appealing to is the South Park. It was one of the most brilliant things that South Park ever said. And it was, hippies don't have money. Woke, liberal people do not eat at the Cracker Barrel. It's just that simple. You don't want these people at your Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel, in general, serves the church crowd. These are conservative Christians. They come there after church. They like to sit around. They like the old-timey theme. And who comes along? The machine is running fine. And then you have to get this liberal white woman in there. And what does she do? Make the dumbest possible fucking decisions. It's the same thing with the dude that they brought into Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson needs to lose the kind of outlaw biker appeal, right? Well, that's your core customer base. They're not going to tolerate DEI. I don't know if the goal is to get as many leftist communists into power inside of these companies and basically wear the company like a skin suit, like your Buffalo Bob from Silence of the Lambs. You're like going to make your big girl skin suit and then dance around and look in the mirror and go, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me, right? I don't know if that's the goal. But at a certain point, I have to start asking questions. I have multiple questions. Like, I would like to talk to this CEO or CFO, whatever she is. She can't be a chief financial officer because she's too fucking dumb. I don't know if, like, what this woman was thinking. You have a restaurant that appeals to Christian conservatives, okay? And what do? You come in and you go, you know what we need to do? We need to change the logo. and we need to update everything. And they don't soft roll it. You know, they don't do anything like that. They don't come out and say, hey, guys, let's ask the customers. Hey, what kind of changes would you like to see at Cracker Barrel? No, let's go hire this high-powered advertising. Advertising. That was a fucking college degree when I was at university, when I was at USF. I meet somebody and, what are you going to school for? Advertising. Marketing. Well, yeah, I don't know how I feel about marketing. It's included as a business degree, but I mean, I met some really intelligent people that were in marketing, but I just don't think that degree pays. And it'll come down to the person ultimately anyways, but they pay some large advertising company, okay? And this large advertising company is like, oh, well, we know what your problem is. We need to change the logo in the interior. And it's like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at these people and go, you're dealing with conservative Christians and older people. They don't want change at Cracker Barrel. It's not what they want. Okay? They just want to come to Cracker Barrel, eat with their family, and go home. They don't want DEI, and they don't want, whatever. But it's like, these people, and I guarantee you, I already know how the woman who changed Cracker Barrel votes. I know it. That, like, if I haven't seen her vote. I haven't talked to her. But if I had to put a substantial portion of money on how she votes, she is a liberal, woke, white woman. Like, I don't even need to see their face. It's like, hey, did you hear the changes instituted at Cracker Barrel? Like, let me guess. Liberal white woman. Oh, dude. How did you know? Just have that ability. Do you see what the CEO of Harley Davidson did? Let me sit on the outside and guess. He's a liberal white dude from Europe. Oh, bro, you're psychic. How do you know all this? You know, it's as simple as Disney. Now, if you're paying attention to the internets, Disney is sitting there trying to win back the very people they spent 10 years trying to lecture to. Disney spent 10 years lecturing to men. And it's like, dude, you want to sit there and ask a question of Bob Iger. Was all this willful? Was this the World Economic Forum saying you need to change culture? Like, that's what I was hearing from 2015 to about 2024 from Disney. I think at this point they've gotten the message, because all their superhero movies are dying. It's also an indication of the market. But in COVID, we never paid for the actual COVID shutdowns, the lockdowns. But Disney, and it was what I was saying back in like 2020 and 2021, when this irrational market happened. I don't know why this is the case, but it's always a this time it's different excuse. But everybody, add Disney to your portfolio. And even when I was 2015 and I didn't know shit, I was in like one of my first finance classes. We had to buy stocks, okay? And this is why I think the finance degree is generally worthless anyways. But So we got to put together a portfolio. Teacher ends up mocking us for buying individual stocks. But again, know what we're doing. So we got to buy these companies and then, make up some bullshit narrative. And that's what we did. Knowing, if I knew then what I know now, I would have actually come up and explained the numbers and why I thought. This girl was just really bullish on Disney. And I said to her, because I wasn't seeing it. She's like, well, they have Star Wars and they have, Marvel now. I'm going, okay, but how does that automatically make Disney a buy stock? Just on the news that, they spent $3 billion on Marvel and $2.5 billion on whatever they spent on Disney. They haven't recouped their money. This is one of my greater points about these companies. It looks like a well-oiled machine. It's humming along. And then retards have to come along and jigger with everything. Okay? You can't financialize art. And this is what I was saying about Disney at the time. Okay? People only have so much time. New things come along. Okay? Disney tried to turn Star Wars and Marvel into homework. And it became unfun. Because they overpaid for the intellectual property. And they needed to make their money back. So they tried to create all these shows. And you would hear the people on the tubes, the stock experts out there. They would be sitting there going, oh, well, Disney Plus is going to add this much revenue. Can't financialize art. They're creating all these shows. People get burned out on IPs. But it wasn't just that. Disney had to lecture us. They had Kathleen Kennedy in there. The Force is female. There's always, in every Kathleen Kennedy movie, one of her proxies. It's a overly aggressive, obnoxious woman that thinks she knows everything. And, a feminist, a liberal white woman. She knows everything. She's going to solve all the problems. And, she's just annoying. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Nobody likes that chick. I don't even know how half of these actors get pushed on us. Must be like BlackRock or something. But not only that, but they had to mock the IP and tried to turn it feminine. And it's like, dude, Star Wars, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I've said this before, is a male power fantasy. It's the guy is, doing what's right. He's fighting evil. He gets the girl. That is a male-oriented story, which doesn't work with your heroes and the MCU. It just doesn't work because it drives men away. And most women, not all, say, oh, dude, but I know this chick, right? And she loves Star Wars. Right. Exception doesn't disprove the rule. Most women go to these comic book action movies or watch Star Wars because their dude wants to. It's why you'll see men at a rom-com. Okay? Men go to rom-coms with their woman because that's what they want to watch. Men don't. And I've seen some good rom-coms. But it's not like a rom-com comes on and, I go, ooh, this is a must-see for me. I want to watch, this whatever story it is. It's always like a story of like male understanding at the end. It's always a story. This is basically how rom-coms go. Some cuck wants to get a chick. She spends her 20s banging other dudes. And then, he spends his 20s pining for her. Maybe has a relationship here and there. And then somehow magically, when the biological clock is ticking on this woman, she decides to settle down with, the guy that she cucked throughout her 20s. And, it's just happily ever after. That's basically, or I don't know, some nurses a cowboy back to health or something. That's like most of your rom-coms, right? There's one rom-com I watched with Jennifer Aniston where she was dating this dude. And it was Mark Ruffalo. And I hate Mark Ruffalo because he's just insufferable. But everybody's like, yeah, he's the best Hulk. I'm like, dude, Norton and Bana were way better Hulks than Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo doesn't seem like he could get angry enough to even, swat a common, stove fire. Seems like he would even, he'd sit back and scream if there's, a grease fire and not smother it. But, in this rom-com, Mark Ruffalo is dating Jennifer Aniston. And she takes off with, Kevin Costner, okay? And she, spends the weekend banging him, knowing that he banged her mom and her grandmother, okay? And then at the end, she realizes her mistake, and she comes running back to Mark Ruffalo. And I'm like, yeah, Mark Ruffalo seems like the type of dude to let that go on. I don't know. I'm not the most manly dude on the planet. I can admit that. But I do have some level of testosterone coursing through my veins where I would probably look at this chick and go, let me get this straight. You flew off with some rich guy that banged your mom and your grandma, and you spent the weekend banging him, and now you're coming back. It's all rom-coms end up with at least, almost all. I'm not going to say all. Most rom-coms end up with, some cuck, right? It's about some cuck and some hot chick. I'd stand by my original description, right? I could never get her in high school, and we became friends. And she knew I had a crush on her. So what she did is spent her 20s getting railed out by football players who didn't want to settle down with her because she's a high-value woman. And, now that her career is taking off and, she's banged every football player within a 400-mile radius, she's come back to me and realized the error of her ways. Now it's time to get serious, start shitting out kids, and be cucked even more when in her 40s she decides to take up tennis or squash or pickleball or whatever stupid thing urban liberals do, and she decides to start banging her pickleball coach. And I'll have to put up with that. Yeah, that's a romantic movie, but that's basically every rom-com. It's start off, she's has her kids with the dude, and then he comes home to find the pickleball coach in bed with her, does a DNA test, finds out that neither one of the kids are his. It's that's romantic to women. So again, it's the wrong story. And, you have to wonder, man. We are, I keep saying it to people, we're lorded over by oligarchs and their mid-wit managerial class losers who have no skills, and all they do is they fuck everything up that they touch. That's literally how the world works. That's it. See your politicians. I realize AOC is playing a character. I realize Jasmine Crockett is playing a character. I realize whoever the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he's playing a character. I realized that when I saw that he had makeup on. But does anybody sit back and look at politicians? like Gavin Newsom going on the podcast circuit to set up his presidential run. Do any of these people in these positions strike you as more intelligent than you are? Because they're not. I guarantee it. They're not. But yep, that's where you end up. Somehow you did everything right. You went and got the degree. You're sitting there. You listen to your boss in the meeting. And then it just dawns on you one day. You're sitting there listening to their ideas. Hey, we should include feminist imagery in Star Wars and in Endgame. You know, let the Force is female now. And you sit in that meeting and you're looking at your boss going, my boss is a moron. That's where we are in society. My boss is a moron. I know what they're telling me to do isn't going to work. Yeah, I have to go do it or I'm going to get fired. And that's basically the story of how all of these liberal white chicks end up at these companies and then fuck the whole thing up. We'll see. Maybe they'll switch back quick enough, in which case Cracker Barrel might be a buy, but who knows? Maybe she'll double down on it the same way that Bud Light did. They haven't, and it's hilarious. They isolate their core audience, okay? And then, they beg to have them back. It's literally like the UFC going, they don't even know who their core customer base is. It's like the UFC trying to appeal to academics. It's literally like going to the humanities department and trying to advertise for UFC. That's how dumb these people are. It's like, the UFC, we went to the college humanities department and, we told the beer drinking blue collar military guys to go F themselves. And then we went and appealed to the humanities department at Harvard in the wokest city, the wokest college, and we're wondering why our core business is down. It's actually quite amazing. But I wanted to talk about your M2 money supply. So I was looking at a chart the other day, and it just jumped out at me, right? On the overvaluation of the market. Okay, so here's your M2 money supply. Okay, see how it starts ramping up? I think this has something to do with the velocity of money slowing down. But right here, see this massive spike right here? We haven't seen anything like that anywhere. Here's your great financial crisis. That's what almost shut down the world, was a dip in the basically, it was basically a credit crisis. But if we look at this next to this, okay? If we look up here, here's your S&P 500 versus U.S. money supply, M2. Look at what the S&P does, okay? Basically, it follows your M2 money supply, right? Look at where it is now. So, kind of the reason I'm bringing this up, right, is, do you see the massive problem? this disconnect here. And why I believe where if we do go into a correction, I think we're going down to like, if you look over here, right? We have 22 trillion in M2 money supply. And we still haven't, you see this dip here? We have a shoot up here, right? See the dip? Here, here, here. There's 23, right? And I knew something had to happen here. Because the money supply is dwindling, right? And this is when we saw that correction in the stock market. Stock market started going down. Then we get an injection here. But what I'm saying is, the reason I'm bringing this up on the M2, know why that's up, but whatever. The reason why I'm bringing that up right now is I think when we do get a correction, I think the S&P 500 is going to go down to something like 2,200 to 2,300 points. That's how big of a correction I think we're in for. And I don't know. I mean, thoughts. I'm going to start doing the comments. But, I just thought that was something interesting to point out. How, basically, the stock market, basically, and I've known this for a while. I just never really paid attention to it or gave it much thought till I started thinking about the bubble. And then I looked at it and because a lot of times you're dealing with such large numbers. But you look at when Buffett started selling too. Buffett started building cash positions like right around when the M2 money supply was dipping. But it is what it is. We'll see. But I really do think the correction is going to be that bad. This is one of the most overvalued markets in history. I mean, if you just look at this right here. Look at how disconnected it got from the money supply. Okay? And we were overvalued here, but not really that bad. That's within the margin of error. And boom. And we were under our M2 money supply. So, yep. Anyways, I'm going to start doing some comments. Very glad to catch the beginning. I have to head to bed. Hope you're doing well, Jay. Thanks, man. I'm doing good. Eventually, these bound to find one's own brand. It's a stupid act. I don't know that they are, man. It just seems like to me, that I don't know if it's a cycle of too many good times or what it is, but it seems like a lot of these people that get into these positions have no idea what they're doing. I'm not a rocket scientist myself. I could have worked at Disney and told them that acquiring Star Wars was a bad idea at the valuation they were paying for it. What did Disney pay for Star Wars? How much did Disney? I think it was $3 billion pay for Star Wars. They paid $4 billion for Star Wars. Okay? They haven't even remotely gotten their money back for that deal at this point. I guarantee you. Yeah, it was both cash and 36 million shares of Disney stock. Ownership of Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Yeah, there's no way they've gotten their money out of that. And I could have told them that at the time. They would have said, well, we get these product lines and I would have said, what if you screw up? And again, it's another example, and it even goes to just stocks, that if you overpay, everything has to go right. That's my main point on NVIDIA, and I will apologize. Last week I was using revenue when I should have been using income, or more importantly, I need to do something here. Return on equity. The return on equity is really high. It actually would justify those numbers if it could continue, but I just don't see it. And that's the problem when things are priced for perfection, right? If anything goes wrong, it'll screw up everything. And, we'll see, but yeah. J Noggy. Oh, dude, 10 is one of the best. Dude, 10 is one of the best albums of all time. I love that album. Dude, I spent basically an entire summer, man. That was one of the, it was something like Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, the Black Album from Metallica, Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood, The Chronic, Nirvana's Nevermind, Pearl Jam 10, Soundgarden's first album, all came out within 18 months of each other. You've never seen albums come out like that before or since, which I honestly think our civilization peaked in about in the early 90s, to be honest with you. $80K. Oh, dude. Bro. Yeah, and this was Western New York where this guy lived. And the cost of living in Western New York is actually below what it is here in Clearwater. So yeah, $80K in 2002, you're balling in North Carolina. J Noggy, what did I have no idea, Gil. Hey, our empire is on the way. Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, technically we're a constitutional republic, but again, it's really, dude, I've said this numerous times, man. It's a Potemkin village, right? What do the American people vote for over and over again? No forever wars, whatever else we vote for, we get forever wars. It's like they come to us and they go, oh, looks like you voted for no forever wars. Here's your forever war. That's honestly what happens, man. And the debt will mount and eventually currency collapse and all of that. Some people have said we're the least dirty shirt in the laundry, but I don't buy that argument. All these countries, everybody's in debt. I don't know, maybe everybody's going to run up the currency, destroy their currency, and then there'll be a new Bretton Woods. But I don't know. America's headed to rule. Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think, well, if you actually listen to the World Economic Forum, their goal was a Chinese-style government all over the West. So that's actually Europe's goal, and they actually have that in Europe. That's why Europe is collapsing. It's collapsing under the weight of its own bullshit. It's like no matter how many times people try to socialize the economy and it doesn't work, they think if they just do it again, that they'll get it right this time, and they never do. And all it results in is bloodshed and loss of life and human suffering. But, the Karens want a Karen. They think the world is unfair, and if they just change the nature of mankind, and that government can do that they will get to the utopia. That's why these people are so dangerous. The most dangerous people are utopists. They think, we had a mass incident, right? So if I can just take the firearms away from everybody, there'll be no more terrorist attacks. But they don't seem to look, it's the instinct, the instinct liberals have, in my opinion, comes a lot from their station in life. Now, you could talk about the client class, and that would be the poor that benefit from these progressive ideas. Okay, they're not really progressives. They're mercenaries. And so they're taking the paycheck. But they vote for these people. But when you're sitting there looking at an Excel spreadsheet all day, and you never really worked in the private sector, you don't understand it, and there tends to be, we all do this, we tend to view things from our side of the river, okay? So you have a person sitting in an office, probably came from an upper middle class to a wealthy background. They have all the right credentials. They went to Yale, fingered their balls for 12 years, joined Skull and Bones, whatever they did there. They come out and they get these jobs at think tanks, and then somebody knows somebody, so they get a job as a CEO somewhere because it's really a political appointment at this point. But they just think, okay, I'm not getting the results I want. And instead of going back to the drawing board and saying, there must be something wrong with what I'm doing, they think there's something wrong with the world. And if they could just change the world, their plan would be validated and everybody would live in the utopia. And, some motherfuckers are just evil. But that's a lot of what I think it is. That, if we could just get rid of these human desires, and if you would just do what I'm telling you to do, we would reach the utopia. Nobody would have to go without. And they don't understand that there's finite resources and their plan sucks. When I got my ass kicked on Alibaba stock, I didn't blame Alibaba. I didn't blame China. I went back to the drawing board and knew immediately what I had done and why I got my cheeks clapped for doing it. And that was, I was trying to make the world conform to what I wanted to happen. I realized that. I had put in 20% compounded annual growth, which is highly unlikely. And basically, I made the numbers say what I wanted them to say so that I would buy the stock. And there's nobody to blame but me. This wasn't a case of, I just had a bad bet. I thought I knew some things. I had changed. I tried to make the world comport to my worldview. And I learned a valuable lesson. I lost like 40% on my position. And then I went back to the drawing board. I didn't get angry at anybody. I just said, I did something wrong. And I went back and I fixed that. That was the problem with my Alibaba purchase. There's always, you're going to learn more when you make a mistake than when you're successful. So, but these people at the top, they don't have a better understanding of the world than you do. They're not more intelligent than you. And I mean, I still don't get Elon Musk. Like, everybody talks about how this guy's a genius. Why? Because he uses pregnant pauses in conversations to sit there and think of whatever statement he can think of that he thinks you want to hear. And no matter how much I tell people Elon Musk is not the genius you think he is, I get called a moron for not seeing his brilliance. Well, if I was a moron, or you were a moron, you'd be very easy to trick. Tricking you would not come with any difficulty. So, it's the way it is, man. So the people in Europe at the top that have the Chinese-style dictatorship, they keep voting for less immigration. What do they get? More immigration. They keep voting for less government. What do they get? More government. It's because it's what the elites want. The elites that run everything use the government to control you. That's how that works. And they'll end up destroying the golden goose, and we'll go through a financial crisis. You'll suffer for it, and it is what it is. They never suffer the consequences like they should. The CEO of Cracker Barrel should be immediately fired for her decision, and they should come out and go, we want to make an apology to our customers. We weren't listening to them before. We're listening now. We made a massive mistake. We've corrected that mistake, and we would like you to forgive us and patron our restaurants again. Is that going to happen? No, because the problem is never with them. The problem for Disney wasn't that they put out crappy material. They had people that generally liked making fun of their core audience and kind of despised them. When you have a conversation where Leslie Headland is talking to the chick from The Acolyte and they're talking about how C-3PO is gay, I'm like, okay, that's a funny conversation to have when you're high with your friends, where you just go, thanks C-3PO and R2-D2 think they're gay together. It's a funny conversation to have. Probably not the best one to have at the press junket. And the thing is, it reflects how they have nothing but disdain for their core audience. And they liked pissing them off. They enjoyed the fact that they were pissing you off, because all they did is they came out in the media and they said, it's not our storytelling, it's the audience. The audience is made up of far-right, right-wing MAGA chuds. And so, but you're relying on their money. So again, it's not their fault. Their movies were just too above your intellectual pay grade for you to understand what they were doing. The fault is with you. That's how socialism works. It's not the system that's at fault. It's the people that were practicing it. That's why every time communism fails, they come back and they say, well, it just wasn't done right that time. Because it's not the system, it's you. They're going to perfect mankind. Trump has hit it. We already have. We can't. Yeah, well, look, man. I don't want a dictator in there. I like the illusion that we live in a democracy or a republic, a constitutional republic. Probably an even better system than what we have is something along the lines of a constitutional monarchy that can be refused or get recused. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. But maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I don't want to we don't need to transition to a dictatorship. What we need to do is transition back to a constitutional republic. We need less government because government is swallowing the golden goose, the private sector. And you're just going to get poorer the more it does it. Also, I've seen those rumors. I'm going to wait and see because you have the doomer media. But here's what I do know about Trump. Trump is a very driven guy. I don't agree with him on quite a bit, even though I voted for him because I agree with Kamala Harris on absolutely nothing. But Trump cannot continue at 79 years old to work 20 hours a day. The dude needs to get some rest and get some sleep. He's 79 years old. I can't do 20 hours of work a day at 47. I don't know how a guy that age does it, but he does. He'll go an entire day to a day and a half without sleeping. I don't know how that's possible. Threatened to walk away from the new... Yeah, well, he's right. See, Robert Downey Jr. understands. He understands that your core audience is the male audience. It's the people around him. Again, remember this. From the progressive or liberal viewpoint, the problem is not their ideas. The problem is the people. And it's just an outgrowth. When you honestly, and I use these terms kind of loosely, what I'm really saying is the elites, when I talk about liberals, because, there's talking to my brother, I sound like a liberal on a lot of subjects. But it's really that I'm just not that. I can be a conservative or a liberal. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you on everything. That's just not the way the world works. But liberalism is going to come out of the wealthy classes. Why? It's just the way it is. Conservatism is going to be more of your independent blue collar guy. Because they don't have money like the elites have. They're not insulated from their mistakes. Okay? So, a guy that's really wealthy can make a massive mistake, and it might cost him some money and be slightly painful, but it's not really going to hurt him because he has a lot of money. And you can be more liberal with your spending. Somebody who's more conservative is probably, and this isn't everybody, obviously, but I'm talking about like on the bottom rungs. Haven't you noticed that urban lawyers tend to be more liberal, and your average plumber tends to be more conservative? It's just the different worlds they inhabit. But what I am saying is, because these people are used to being in charge, and nobody tells the truth in liberal society. It's just the way it is. Like when I was doing stand-up comedy, I noticed this even in Clearwater. It was really cliquey, and you had to do and say the right things to get invited to the cool guy table. They viewed themselves as a group, not an individual. I can only say how I view myself in life. I am an individual that will join the group and put the needs of the group above my own as long as our destination is the same, for lack of a better term. Whereas when you're liberal, you have a tendency to view yourself as a group and have less individual identity. So you just watch that play out. Like, okay, I'm a member of a group, whatever group I join. They want to do something. I don't want to do it. So I go home. Unless it's like family or something like that. Like my mom, when I was home, she wanted to go see the new Jurassic World. I didn't want to see it, but I went because it made my mom happy. She wanted to watch a monster movie, and she's my mom. But in most groups, if your goals no longer align with mine, I leave the group. Liberals aren't like that. And so this is just what I'm telling you right there. They don't understand that the problem with modern Marvel is the story and who they're trying to appeal to. So what they think is because they like this, they can force another group to accept it. And the problem is not with their storytelling, it's with us who doesn't want to watch it. And they're not going to get the message until there's massive consequences. And I thought Robert Downey Jr. was getting $100 million for playing Doom, but I may not be correct on that. But yeah, he sees it and he already knows. He's like, this woke stuff didn't work before and it's killing the franchise. So he's probably like, you have to take it out or I'm out. I can't take movies seriously. I'm not sexist. It's just, yeah, I can't really either, although I would say there's some great female villains. If you watch the 2015 Blade Runner with Ryan Gosling, really like that movie. That chick who plays a replicant in that is actually terrifying to me. Because, you know, in the movie setup, she's way faster and stronger. The replicants are just way faster and stronger. But, bro, for the most part, I'm completely with you on that. And also, though, there's been some really big female villains throughout time. You know, like Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton does scare me. Like, that woman would have you and your entire family killed. Hey, bro. You've heard me shitting on my finance degree all the time on this channel. I don't agree with you there. I don't agree with that, Gil. You might want to change that. Women are fun. I have women buddies I'm not attracted to, and we're buddies. I think women are great. It's just the female story. The female story is different than the male story. And these people at the top, they don't see it. Because what they want is they want all audiences to come in. They're like, well, you know, if we put more female heroes in, we'll get more females. And you're like, but you won't. And it's because it's not a female story. That's why. There's just differences in how we see the world. What's up, dude? Thanks, man. Good to be back. I just had to take a massive break. Now I'm having fun doing it again. These people treat... Yeah. No, I agree with you, Sparky. They view it. There's writings on this where the ruling class has a tendency to infantilize the working classes. And the irony of it is the working class can survive just fine without the elites. The elites cannot survive without the working class. It's the men, I say this all the time. It's the men that dig oil out of the ground. It's the men that, build houses. It's the men that enforce laws. It's the military. These are the people that make society function, not the other way around. But again, I would also look at the elites. Everything in their society is inverted. Like, when you're listening to a lot of them talk, they all have the same training, right? They read Hobbes, Leviathan, they read Machiavelli, they read all this stuff. Do you think they were really talking about you and I when they were talking about how Trump is a threat to our democracy? Do you really think they meant our democracy as in we have equal input to them? Or do you think they were really saying he's a threat to us? He's a threat to the institutions that we set up to manage you MAGA chuds. And this is what they do. It's like Michael Bloomberg, said, poor people don't know how to spend their money. It should be taken from them and spent for them. Who do you think he meant when he said poor people? He was talking about anybody that isn't in the high millionaire and billionaire class. They think they know best. This is the same reason why when Bloomberg, who funds the gun control industry, was giving a speech on stage, somebody asked him, are you going to give up your guns? And he was shocked that question would even be asked. It's like, well, I need my private security. Right? There's the need. He needs it. He's better than you. Just smell his farts and, suck on his toenail. That's the way the dude looks. Like, if we crashed on an island, and I use this example, Bill Gates, when he started telling me what to do, would be confused when I looked at him and I said, the fuck are you going to do about it if I don't do anything you tell me to do? He doesn't speak that language. He would generally be taken aback because he'd be like, I don't understand why this slave is not doing what I told him to do. I'm the smart, rich one. Without me, he wouldn't even know how to find food, even though he has no discernible skills and really lucked into the position he was in. But yeah, that's how they view us, man. That's why I don't understand it. Why all these people look to the government, the puppets of the oligarchs to solve all their problems, when I'm like, bro, the oligarchs despise you. They view you as tax donkeys. They are something different. They are a global citizen. They need to make you into one of them, and then we'll be at the utopia, right? Even though they are the most racist, nasty, despicable people that walk the planet. Larry Fink, here's an example. At the World Economic Forum. And he's also head of the World Economic Forum now. But him saying, there are certain behaviors that need to be forced. But it's like, dude, I think I speak for almost every male with a little bit of testosterone in their blood that asks the question, yo, Larry, who the fuck voted you king of anything? Tell us what behaviors need to be enforced? What are you talking about? You don't tell us anything. But again, that's how they view the world. I'm so sexist. Yeah, it's like, I saw that. I'm like, And that's like what you're pointing out in that statement is so true. Wow, we told you the force is female. You don't think the force is female? You must be a sexist. The force is female is a sexist statement. It's like, yeah, it's not going to get any better till there's massive consequences for their bullshit. Dude, I haven't seen that movie in a few years, and I don't really remember it that well. Yeah, they're going to. They have no choice at this point. Which I'm gonna wait, but Cracker Barrel looks to be like slightly undervalued. That might be a play stock for me. Dude, yep, I've heard that before too. And in fact, most of the I'm not going to say most, but a sizable portion of politicians were actually theater kids. They're just terrible actors. A lot of them were in high school drama and college drama. Well, yeah, the yield curve inverted 18 months or 12 months ago, right? And also, the average bull market lasts about 5.6 years. So, yeah, I just wanted to show the disconnect between the M2 money supply, about 22.5 trillion in base money, versus a valuation of 60 trillion for the US stock market. What that tells me is there is a lot of leverage in the system, and what I think the elites are trying to do is unwind those leverage positions slowly, and I think a lot of retail is going to be a bag holder. Give me a second. I got to run to the bathroom. All right, I'm back. Yeah, dude, I think there's a ton of leverage in the system, and I really think it's going to start to hit probably in October to November. We're going to start seeing a contraction, and then I don't know. I think Nvidia's going to implode. I think a lot of these high flyers, and Nvidia's market cap is so large now that losing a stock like that is going to have a massive effect on the market. But we'll see. Who knows how these things play out? Dude, I'm in cash inside of my TSP. I'm all cash sitting in a money market fund. So I have been since June. So we'll see. Oh, I know. There's a lot of stuff that can hit. And it is what it is, man. Black swans hit. And if you're stuck in an over-leveraged, overvalued market, you're going to get crushed. What's up? What's going on, brother? Genius move. Yeah, even at the time, man, when I saw that, I didn't know anything really about finance, but I was like, $4 billion, that seems like an awful lot for the Star Wars property. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't even know what that stock is. Never even looked at it. But I would be out of anything. Right now, my advice to people would be out of anything with a high PE. Probably on Tuesday, I'm going to switch my Roth IRA into a index fund with a lower PE out of even, VT. I'll be back into it once there's a market crash. But, yeah, I think I'm going to do that, so... But what's going on, man? Just like they did. Yeah, it's possible. Probably. There's probably going to be a dead cat bounce. Retail has spent the past 5 years being trained to buy the dip. So, it is what it is. I've noticed that. Well, again, Trump pushes himself too hard. Like a 79-year-old man can't go days without sleeping. I don't do it now because, number one, it sucks. But Trump was always known as a guy who didn't sleep very much. But now, from the way I understand it, the dude works like 20 hours a day, and it's just not sustainable at his age. Yep, especially as much as Trump, I don't think is really prone to becoming super stressed, but that job is stressful. I don't know why the guy wanted to do it. I mean, I'm glad he did, because we would have been stuck with the cackler, and, oh, God. They would have probably tried gun confiscation. That was a plan. The government has long wanted gun confiscation in this country. If we didn't have the Second Amendment, they would have confiscated all of them by this point, and the government would have already turned tyrannical. Nah, Biden's not normal again, dude. There's something more than that going on with him. Constant lawsuits, stress, half the world hates him. Yeah, dude, well, that's what happens if you go in and you ruin the globalist party. They try to destroy you. Yep. On that note, Jay, are you triggered by strongman's? No. Nah, it is what it is, man. Didn't work out that way for me, but there is a problem. I will say this. There is an energy that comes from childless women in particular. Okay? And, you can look at the Chelsea handlers. There's like two types of women I see. There's more, but I'm just going to talk about two types of women who haven't had children and how they behave. There's the Chelsea handler type who has to cover the sadness with anger, drugs, and basically contempt. And then there's the childless woman energy that gets focused on society. And again, it becomes an infantilization of otherwise grown adults because they're trying to, put those instincts into use. And yeah, a lot of times these liberal white women, and that's who the majority of them are, They try to mother society, and it becomes the devouring mother. But yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with what Chris was saying there. People who have children tend to vote more conservative, think about the future more, and, is what it is. Definitely not. Just like, dude, saying something like that to me is not going to get me angry. It is what it is, man. And I actually see their point of view in a lot of ways. Ultraviolet. Oh, dude. Yeah, that one with, is it Ray Winston? Who's a guy who played Balin's Skull. That dude's awesome as the Punisher because he's like 6'4". I like John Bernthal, but I just don't think he's big enough to play the Punisher. He does a good job, but I just think somebody like that one guy or Dolph Lundgren's size, I think they make a more intimidating presence on screen. But yeah, dude, we do need a Ultraviolet Punisher movie. Yeah, well, it can just be certain episodes. Whatever. It is what it is, man. I just didn't want to drag people along in it because it's like, okay, what's your opinion on this? I don't know. I didn't see him say that. It is what it is, man. I'm not I don't take when somebody says, somebody said this, I don't take it as the gospel because there's numerous reasons they could say it. Most of the time, it's just a misunderstanding. Then it can be the telephone game. So it is what it is. Well, a lot of these guys that are legends in the investment world are never going to tell you the truth exactly. They're going to have to dance around it because their words can actually change the market, and they could get in trouble for that. You wonder why Warren Buffett speaks in code. Warren Buffett's not going to tell you how he invests. Why would he do that? He's not going to tell you what he's buying. Again, he wants to get his position in. So, but yeah, I think if you're looking at the base money supply, or if you even just look at it through the lens of the GDP, the Buffett indicator, there's no way you can come to any other conclusion when you start looking at the metrics that this isn't one of the most overvalued, if not the most overvalued markets in history. Silicon Valley Bank went bankrupt. A lot of reasons, but I think a lot of it had to do with the slowdown in the M2 money supply. Yep, or CoQ10 or something like that. Oh, dude, I love caffeine. Yeah. The blessings are immense. Yeah, I don't have any kids either. All right, guys, I'm going to do these last comments and get out of here. Oh, I'm sure it does, man. Yeah, Bernthal can actually fight. That dude really knows how to fight. He's good at boxing, and one of his really good friends is a wrestler who's taught him. But Bernthal, to me, as the Punisher, is good, but it's not great. If you understand the difference. Like, his acting is great. He's just not a big enough guy. I mean, Bernthal's like my size. He's like 5'11". I don't know. He probably weighs more than me. He's probably 180 pounds, but, he's just not a big dude. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that for the reason that A good female buddy will help you meet other women. You know, like, to me, it doesn't bother me to just be friends with women. It honestly doesn't. I don't care. You know? It's like, if a chick's like, hey, just like you as a friend, wants to call and talk, doesn't bother me in the slightest. Wow, more comments than I thought. All right. Yeah, I don't agree with that. Yeah. Yep, First Republic, a bunch of those banks went under. And I think some of it, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really put too much thought into it or looked into it too much. It is, but yeah, I mean, Chris is my friend, but it's not like I'm going to take, it's not like Chris says something and then I go, oh, well, I got to change my opinion. Salute, brother. You too. Well, dude, a good friend tells you shit that you want to hear. A good friend tells you shit you don't want to hear. A bad friend just tells you whatever. So, yeah, man. All right, brother. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to it that much, so it is what it is, man. But, good night, guys. Hey, man, I'm just going to say, hey, guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everybody that listened to me just sit here and rant, and I always had a good time doing it. I hope you guys have a great week, and thanks for spending your time here. Have a great night. Hope you guys get laid, get plenty of sleep, and I'm out.